at the Meg's Point Nature Center from the Meg's Point Nature Center. I am out here at Meg's Beach. We're getting ready to do our salt marsh program. It's a bit windy. We're going to try and do the whole thing, but we'll see what happens. So this program is not really about creatures that live on a sandy beach, because there aren't very many things that like to live on a sandy beach. Mostly what we talk about when we do our sandy beach program are the animals that live in Long Island Sound. They wash up. Their shells, signs of these animals wash up. So for the first part of this program, we always do beachcombing. I have talked about beachcombing in other episodes, so go to megspointnaturecenter.org and you can see all of the programs that I've done in the past. But what beachcombing is basically searching for cool things on a beach. And in this case, we're looking specifically for signs of life. If you look on the beach here, you can see, look on the beach here, you can see there are lots of shells and seaweed. All of these signs of life are here on the beach. This is what we're looking for. All of these things are from Long Island Sound. So if we take a look, there's an oyster shell. We've got a jingle shell. We've got a slipper snail. There's a different kind of a jingle, different color. All right. We've got some seaweed. Here's some Irish moss. So these things live in Long Island Sound. They don't live on the beach. Animals will come here to get food. Raccoons and gulls will come here to scavenge food. But there aren't very many creatures that live up here on the sandy beach all the time. Now, we talked over on our rocky shore about an intertidal zone. That's the difference, the distance between the high tide line and the low tide line. What I'm kneeling on right here is one of those tide lines. This is a high tide line, or a rack line. The rack is all the debris washed up by the sound. There are some creatures, little mole crabs, that live right along on where the water is breaking, and they'll move up and down, but they stay right where the water is breaking all the time. That's the closest animal we get to actually living up here in the sand. So what I'm going to do, we're going to go out and we're going to pull the net, and we're going to see if we can catch anything. It's kind of hard today with the wind the way it is. And then we're going to go over and I'll talk about some of the animals that are washed up on the beach and if we found anything in the net. So let's go do that. Josh is going to help me out pulling the net. All right, that's about it. You stay right where you are. Get the net on the ground. Right on the ground. There you go. Just say heads up if I have a big wave gonna hit me. Oh, that one went in. Oh boy. All right, I'm stuck, go. All right, so pull the net up. We don't have anything in here right now. I'm gonna look closely because you never know. Sometimes you get small animals that will get caught in the sand, in the debris, like pipefish. This is a bit early for pipefish. There's a bit of sea glass. Not a whole lot of other signs of life here. And the tide is coming in. One of the reasons why we've got such high wave action is not just the wind, The tide is coming in. Hopefully my microphone still works, because it is soaking wet right now. All right, let's go up here. We're going to take a look at our rack line. Come around over here. So what we've got, let's talk a little bit about the jingles first of all. So these are called jingle shells. Years ago, the settlers used to take them, they would tie them all together and make wind chimes. They made a nice jingling sound, so they called them jingle shells. Usually we only find half of a jingle shell, and it's the half that is not attached to the rock. So this is a bivalve. Remember, bivalves are two-shelled animals. They attach themselves to a rock. When they die, half of the shell floats up on the beach. The other half is usually still attached. And that's usually much paler. You can see this is orange and this is yellow. The other half is usually white and has a hole in it. So you already have a hole if you're gonna make wind chimes out of them. There's another one. We've talked about the slipper snails. We did a whole program on slipper snails. So these are snails that can't move. Most snails have the ability to move around. These snails have to stay in one place, and they're going to stack one on top of the other. They grow in a colony. The one on the bottom, sometimes two, are going to be male. The ones on the top are going to, or I reversed that. The ones on the bottom are female, the ones on the top are male. And the ones in the middle are changing from girls to boys, because if another one comes along, from boys to girls, this one on top, that's a boy, another one will start to grow on top, the new one will turn into a boy, the one that was a boy turns into a girl. So in your colony, you've always got boys on the top, girls on the bottom, and a few sometimes in the middle that are transitioning from boys into girls. So really cool that they can do that. Sometimes you'll find the colony washed up on the beach. It's because the bottom one died, the rest of the colony starts floating around in the water. And they usually don't make it very long once they've washed up on the beach. Now we have a lot of clamshell, these are all clams. Sorry, oysters. These are all oysters. And the oysters in Long Island Sound, they make good meat. They don't make really nice pearls. So you can't really use these if you're trying to make jewelry. We also have over here, really cool, this is a surf clam. This is the largest bivalve in Long Island Sound. They can get 9 inches across. So that's really cool. I wonder if I have a bigger one in here. I also have in here, this is a quahog. This is another clam that lives in Long Island Sound, has a much thicker, stronger shell, sometimes called a thick-shelled clam, than the surf clam, which has a thinner shell. Both of those are eaten by whelks. This is a knobbed whelk, and they will cruise along. They like to eat bivalves. It's a snail, so it's a mobile snail. When they find a bivalve that they like to eat, they will suction themselves onto the bivalve and pry open the clam or the oyster or the mussel. Then they squirt their digestive juices inside. They digest the clam inside of its shell, absorb those nutrients right back into their body. So they leave the clam just with the shell after they're done digesting them. The knobbed whelk is the largest snail in Long Island Sound. We also get a more common one. This is a channeled whelk, which are a bit more common in the Sound. They eat the same way. And if you notice, the edge here is very broken. That occurs as they're trying to eat. It gets broken off as they're trying to pry open clams. Now, occasionally we find these on the beach. These are the egg cases. These are from a channeled whelk. The knobbed whelk, the edges come to a point. The channeled whelks have flat edges. So I know that this is the egg case for the channeled whelk. They will lay these in long strings. They attach them into the substrate on the bottom. And then from each of these pouches, you could get 60 or 80 little eggs that turn into whelks and are released into the water as very tiny whelks. They look identical to the adult, but it will take them 20, 21 years to get as big as this one. Lots of things like to eat them, so they're not all going to get that large. Now, if you look around down here, we've got some different types of seaweed. First thing we're going to talk about, though, is a sponge. This is a red beard sponge. When it's alive, it's bright, bright orange. I've never seen them red, but it's called a red beard sponge. And these live in Long Island Sound. We also get ones that are quite a bit thicker, called red finger sponge. They look just like this, they're just much thicker around, like a finger. We've got some Irish moss. Now, when the Irish moss is fresh, it could be green or purple. And this is what people use in a lot of food. It's in jellos, puddings, ice cream, salad dressing, makeup. There are lots of things that they put this in. If you look in the ingredients of your food, you're not going to see Irish moss or seaweed or algae, which is what seaweed is. You're going to see carrageenan. Carrageenan is a thickening agent that's extracted from seaweed. Do we have any other seaweeds? Again, the weather is not really cooperating today. Normally we'd have some nice big pieces of fresh seaweed washing up, but the wave action is a little strong today, so we're not seeing any of that. I hope this answers most of the questions you have about our salt marsh program. Again, these programs are much longer and more in-depth if you bring your groups down to do them. Right now we are not able to do groups. As soon as we can, we'll let you know. We may have to start out doing very small groups at social distance, but we're working on a way that we can do these programs in a more in-depth way. If you have a request for a special program, you can contact us at megspointnaturecenter.org. Otherwise, I encourage you to follow us on Facebook and YouTube, Megs Point Nature Center on YouTube. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's ranger.russ on Instagram. And I do short versions of these big programs, just little snippets when I find something cool in the park. So I hope you enjoyed this episode from the Megs Point Nature Center. I will see you tomorrow at 11 o'clock and 2 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in.